Nietzsche's most dangerous thought. Are you ready to listen? There is something inside you that scares you. Something you avoid facing, something that has been buried beneath layers of comfortable certainties and comforting illusions. But Nietzsche saw this. He studied it. And when he revealed his discovery, the world reacted with shock and contempt. After all, the truth he brought was too dangerous. What would happen if everything you believe about morality, good and evil, was nothing more than a convenient construct? What if the truth was so brutal that most people would rather live in illusion? Today, let's explore Nietzsche's most dangerous thought, one that can completely change your view of the world. If you are ready to face this truth without anesthesia, leave your like and subscribe to the channel. But I warn you, once you hear this, there is no going back. 1. The illusion of morality. Have you been trained to be weak? Since you were born, you were taught to follow rules, believing that there are certain things that are good and others that are bad. But Nietzsche revealed a brutal truth. The morality that governs society was not made to elevate the strong, but to keep the weak in control. Most people believe that being good means being obedient, submissive, and selfless. But Nietzsche saw it differently. He realized that morality was shaped by the weak, by the resentful, by those who could never achieve anything, so they decided to transform their impotence into virtue. The idea that sacrifice is noble, that humility is an essential quality, and that thinking about others first is a sign of greatness did not come naturally. It was imposed to prevent the strong from realizing their own power. Those who obey these rules from a young age grow up believing that standing out is wrong. Nietzsche called this mentality slave morality. According to him, society exalts qualities that keep people controllable and erases any impulse towards greatness. This means that if you feel guilty about wanting something for yourself, it's not natural, it's the result of years of conditioning. Therefore, every time someone dares to free themselves from these bonds, they are immediately attacked. Bold, strong, and determined people are called selfish, arrogant, or even wicked. But Nietzsche asks, what's so wrong with seeking your own power? The vast majority of people don't realize that this morality only serves to level everything down. Those who are stronger, smarter, or more ambitious need to hide these qualities to be accepted. If you want to stand out, you must prepare to be hated. If this seems extreme, just look around. Anyone who challenges society's norms is always seen as a threat. Those who don't ask permission are judged, not because they do something wrong, but because they prove that the rules are just weak conventions. And here's the worst: most prefer to keep this lie alive. They prefer to believe that the world rewards the good and punishes the bad, because facing the truth would be unbearable. If kindness doesn't bring rewards, then what's the point of following these rules? Nietzsche realized that fear of freedom makes people accept their own submission. They avoid questioning, they avoid thinking for themselves, and they even attack those who show that another path is possible. The prison was created within the mind, and no one needs physical chains to keep themselves captive. If everything you know about morality is just a social construct, then you have two options. Follow obediently and accept your place, or break away from everything and create your own path. But this comes with a price. For Nietzsche, true greatness requires extreme courage, the courage to destroy all certainties and live without ties. Most people can't stand that. They prefer the illusion of comfort to facing raw reality. Now the question that remains is, are you ready to accept that everything you were taught about right and wrong could be a lie? 2. The death of God and the existential void. Nietzsche announced one of the most controversial ideas in philosophy: God is dead. But this statement was not a direct attack on religion. What he meant was that the old certainties that supported morality and the meaning of life were crumbling. For centuries, people believed that there was a divine order guiding the world, defining what was right and wrong. But as science, reason, and critical thinking advanced, these certainties began to disappear. If God is dead, then what do we have left? The problem is that without a supreme authority determining good and evil, the human being finds himself facing a frightening abyss. If there is no cosmic order that justifies our actions, then everything depends only on us. But are we ready to carry this burden? Nietzsche saw this as a breaking point. Some people, unable to deal with the absence of a universal purpose, create new gods. Not necessarily religious deities, but ideologies, leaders, belief systems that promise to fill the void left by the absence of absolute truth. This means that even those who say they are atheists or free of dogmas often still follow a mental structure that seeks external certainties. They cling to ready-made concepts, such as morality imposed by society, norms of behavior and unquestionable truths that comfort them. But Nietzsche went further. For him, the death of God should be a liberation, not a reason for despair. If the world does not give us a predetermined meaning, this means that we have complete freedom to create our own meaning. The problem is that this freedom is scary. Most people don't want to carry that responsibility. They prefer to submit to established rules, to systems that already tell them what to do, what to believe, and how to live. They don't want to be free, they just want comfort. Nietzsche called this passive nihilism, the mentality of those who, upon realizing that there is no universal purpose, choose to give up any search for meaning. They become apathetic, resigned, seeking only distractions to avoid facing emptiness. But here's the big question: if everything is a construct, then anything is permitted? This is the fear of many when they hear this idea. If there are no absolute rules, then what stops someone from acting without limits? Nietzsche's answer is simple. The truly strong do not need to exploit or harm others because their strength lies in themselves. The weak seek power over others, the strong seek power over themselves. This means that true freedom is not doing whatever you want without consequences. It means creating your own code of conduct, based on full awareness of reality. Not because someone said you should, but because you decided this is the path that makes sense for you. Those who are not prepared for this responsibility prefer to stick to the old rules. They accept imposed morality without question because it makes them feel safe. But this security is an illusion. If you really want to be free, you need to have the courage to abandon all certainties and build your own truth. Few are willing to do this. You are? 4. Superman. He who creates his own morality. Nietzsche realized that if there are no universal rules, then human beings need to build their own path. But most people don't have the strength to do that. They prefer to follow what has already been established, seek approval from others and live within the rules. Therefore, he created the concept of Superman, not in the sense of a comic book hero, but one who rises above the illusions of imposed morality and creates his own values. Superman does not need external justifications for his actions. He does not seek anyone's approval. He acts based on his own worldview and accepts all the consequences of this. But there is a high price for this freedom. Anyone who follows this path will inevitably be attacked. People hate those who don't need permission to exist. Most seek to belong to something bigger, be it a religion, a political movement, a social cause. The Superman, you don't need any of that. He doesn't follow ideologies. He doesn't stick to dogmas. He builds his own morality and lives by it. But to become this elevated being, it is necessary to break with everything we were taught. Since we were little, we have been conditioned to obey. We were taught that being accepted by others is more important than being authentic. The result is a world full of people who repress their true desires, who avoid conflict at all costs, and who are afraid to stand out. Nietzsche despised this type of existence. For him, living as a slave to the imposed rules was wasting his life. Superman does not fear loneliness, because he knows that true greatness requires breaking away from the herd. But this journey is not for everyone. Few have the courage to live without an instruction manual. For Nietzsche, the world was divided between creators and followers. Creators carve their own path. Followers wait for someone to tell them what to do. And this is the most important question. Do you want to be a creator or a follower? Do you want to live by your own rules or continue to accept the norms that have been imposed on you since birth? Nietzsche knew that, to become a Superman, it was necessary to go through a painful process. It is necessary to destroy all certainties, all imposed beliefs, all illusions. It is necessary to rebuild from scratch. This means that you will be misunderstood. People around you will try to pull you back, call you arrogant, selfish, insensitive. But what they really fear is their freedom. Because the simple fact that someone lives without ties is a reminder that everyone could be free, but chose not to be. And this truth is unbearable for most. Superman is the one who he doesn't ask for permission to be who he really is. He knows that the morality of the weak was created to tame the strong. He doesn't bow down to rules that don't make sense. But before you continue, you need to ask yourself, do you really want this freedom? Or do you prefer the illusion of comfort, even if it means living in chains? 5. Voluntary slavery. Why do the majority prefer to be weak? Nietzsche noticed something disturbing about human nature. Most people don't want to be free. They say they want freedom, but deep down, they prefer to follow orders. They prefer someone to tell them what to do, how to think, what is right and wrong. This happens because real freedom demands something that few can bear: absolute responsibility. If you are truly free, you can no longer blame anyone for your mistakes. You can't hide behind rules, and you can't pretend that your failures are the fault of the system, God, or destiny. But this weight is unbearable for most. So, instead of freeing themselves, people choose to voluntarily imprison themselves. They accept laws they don't question, traditions they don't understand, and values they never deeply analyze. Nietzsche called this slave morality, a system created by the weak to justify their submission. They say that humility is a virtue, that sacrifice is noble, and that seeking one's power is bad. But why? The answer is simple: because this keeps the strong in check. When an individual realizes his own strength, he becomes a threat to established systems. He can no longer be manipulated by guilt or fear. Therefore, every society creates mechanisms to punish those who try to deviate from the norm. If you refuse to follow the rules, you will be called selfish, arrogant, insensitive. If you put yourself above average, you will be attacked and isolated. The most curious thing is that it's not just governments or institutions that do this, it's the people around them. They feel angry at those who don't follow the same rules because their existence is a reminder that they themselves could have chosen a different path. Most people stick to a routine you hate, follow beliefs you don't question, and accept comfortable mediocrity. They convince themselves that they are doing the right thing because the alternative, seeing that they have wasted their lives, is unbearable. Nietzsche saw this clearly. He realized that human beings are taught to conform from childhood. Anyone who questions too much is repressed. Anyone who defies rules is punished. Little by little, the instinct for freedom is erased. The greatest proof of this voluntary slavery is the fact that people react with hatred when faced with the possibility of being free. Instead of seeking this freedom for themselves, they try to destroy those who dare to achieve it. But Nietzsche believed that it is possible to escape this cycle. To do this, you need courage to break with all imposed certainties and take full control of your own life. This means don't ask permission to be who you are. It means challenging everything you've been taught and testing your own ideas. It means accepting that there are no guarantees, there are no safeties, and you are completely alone on your journey. This path is not for everyone. But Nietzsche believed that those who manage to follow him become the only ones truly alive. Now the question is, do you have the courage to leave voluntary slavery? Or will you continue hiding behind the rules that were imposed to keep you weak? 6. Chaos or freedom? The danger of rejecting the rules. Nietzsche believed that true freedom demands a high price. To become a truly autonomous individual, it is necessary to break with the rules imposed by society. But what happens when someone completely frees themselves from these bonds? People's greatest fear is that, without rules, the world will descend into chaos. If there is no universal morality, then is anything permissible? Without laws, without norms, without a code of conduct, what stops someone from destroying everything around them? This is the dilemma that Nietzsche faced when proposing the idea of Superman. For him, it wasn't about living without limits, but about creating his own values. Total freedom does not mean acting impulsively, but having complete control over yourself. But not everyone is capable of this. When some people realize that there are no universal rules, they can become lost in destructive nihilism. If everything is permitted, then nothing has meaning. This is the greatest risk of rejecting traditional morality without being prepared to replace it with something superior. Nietzsche called this the danger of nihilism. Many, upon realizing that the values they followed their entire lives were illusions, fall into emptiness and believe that nothing matters anymore. They don't become free, they just become cynical, apathetic, directionless. But there is another way. The real Superman, he does not give in to chaos, but masters himself. He understands that without his own code of conduct, he can self-destruct. That's why he creates his own rules, not because someone told him to, but because he decided. This means that real freedom is not doing whatever you want at any time. Real freedom is owning yourself to the point where you don't need an external system to guide you. But this requires a level of discipline that few can achieve. Nietzsche knew that rejecting all rules without creating new ones leads to despair. But he believed that the strongest are those who manage to rebuild their own values, without relying on dogmas or illusions. The big problem in today's society is that many people think that being free just means rejecting any authority. But without self-control, without a purpose, without a vision of your own, this freedom becomes nothing but destruction. Nietzsche saw this as humanity's greatest test. Those who cannot create new meaning in their lives inevitably turn to leaders, systems, and rules to control them. What does this mean in practice? It means that freedom is not for everyone. Some can bear it, others cannot. And that is why the world will always have those who command and those who obey. The real danger of rejecting the rules lies not in external chaos, but in internal chaos. If you are not prepared to take full responsibility for your actions, freedom can become an unbearable burden. Nietzsche believed that only a minority of humanity could endure this level of existence. Most people, deep down, want someone to tell them what to do. They need a government, a leader, a religion, or a moral code that tells them what is right and wrong. But the real Superman doesn't need any of that. He looks into the abyss of freedom and does not back down. He does not despair when he realizes that there are no rules because he creates his own. Now, the final question. Are you ready to be a creator, or would you prefer to remain a follower? 7. How to apply this truth in life. Do you have the courage? Now that you understand Nietzsche's views on morality, power and freedom, the most important question arises: how to apply this truth in your life? After all, understanding these ideas is just the first step. The real challenge is living up to them. The first thing you need to accept is that no one will give you permission to be free. If you wait for society, your friends or your family to approve of your journey, you will never leave the starting point. Superman doesn't ask permission. He decides. This means that you should start questioning all the rules you automatically follow. Why do you believe what you believe? Who taught you to think that way? Do these rules really make sense, or were they just imposed to keep you under control? But here's the biggest challenge. Total freedom demands total responsibility. If you want to create your own morality, you need to be ready to accept all the consequences of your actions. There are no more excuses, there is no one left to blame. Most people cannot bear this load. They prefer to go with the flow, do what everyone else does because it protects them from the weight of the decision. But Nietzsche says that greatness only comes to those who have the courage to create their own path. This means you will have to face loneliness. The people around you will not understand your choices. Many of them will attack you, not because you are wrong, but because your freedom scares them. But that is the price of authenticity. If you want to live without strings attached, you need to accept that will not be loved by everyone. Those who live by the rules will always try to drag rule breakers back into the fold. Another essential point is learning to think for yourself. Nietzsche via group mentality as one of the greatest enemies of freedom. If you base your opinions on what others say, then you are still trapped, even if you think you are free. This means you must educate yourself, seek knowledge beyond what is taught, explore different perspectives, and most of all, make your own decisions without fear of external judgment. But there is a fatal mistake that many make when trying to follow this philosophy: confuse freedom with impulsiveness. Nietzsche never said that being free means doing anything without thinking. On the contrary, the real Superman acts with full awareness of his actions. If you want to apply this truth in your life, you need to develop self-control, discipline, and a clear purpose. Without this, your freedom will be nothing but destruction and emptiness. This means you need to learn to deal with discomfort. When you stop following external rules, you have to create your own. And this requires constant reflection, mental strength, and courage to make mistakes without looking for excuses. Nietzsche believed that life was a work of art and that each individual should shape it like an artist. This means that there is no right path. There is only the path you decide to take. But this choice has a price. Are you ready to pay? Are you willing to be misunderstood, to be criticized, to carry the weight of your own decisions without blaming anyone? Few have that courage. But Nietzsche believed that the few who succeed become the only ones truly free. Now, the final question: are you ready to become a creator of your own reality? Or will you continue following a path you never really chose? The choice has always been yours. But now you know the truth. You've come this far. This means that, in some way, this message resonated within you. But now comes the hardest part: what will you do with this truth? Nietzsche showed us that the world does not have a predetermined meaning, that traditional morality is a construct, and that most people would rather live as slaves to the system than carry the weight of true freedom. But you have a choice. You can continue living as you always have, following the rules you were taught without question, seeking the approval of others and settling for a mediocre existence. Or you can go a step further. You can choose to become the creator of your own morality, the master of your destiny. But this takes courage. Courage to break away from what is comfortable, to be hated by those who can't bear to see someone living without ties, to abandon any illusion and face life as it really is. Nietzsche did not promise an easy path. On the contrary, he showed that true freedom is for the few. Most people need rules, they need a God, they need a system that guides them, because they cannot bear the weight of existence without crutches. Now you need to decide. Will you follow the herd or will you take complete control of your life? If this message made sense to you, comment here. I am the creator of my own morality. Let's see how many have the courage to accept this truth. And if you want to continue exploring these ideas, delve deeper into Nietzsche's thought and understand what few have the courage to discuss, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. The journey to true freedom begins now. Are you ready? If this message resonates within you, don't leave without leaving your comment. Write, I am the creator of my own morality. Let's see how many actually have the courage to accept this truth. Leave your like so that more people have access to this powerful, and share this video. Who do you think needs to hear this from? And if you want to continue this philosophical journey, exploring ideas that few have the courage to discuss, subscribe to the channel right now and activate the bell. Here, there is no room for easy truths, only for those who dare to think for themselves. See you in the next video. Are you ready?